deception, and outrage, disgrace, for shame. Evil as plain as the scar on its face. Deception and outrage, disgrace, for shame. He asked for trouble the moment he came. I would like to point out that this book, the deception, the deceit, deceiver of hearts, deceiver of fools. I ended up doing a wrap-up in May, at the end of May, because I was doing my recommendations videos and they were all taking a lot of time, and I just decided I was just going to do the wrap-up at the end of June that covers both the books I read in May and the books in June. And I initially wanted to talk about this book in the order in which I read them. I'm like, nope, I'm going to talk about them in the order of from the most disappointing to the one I absolutely love and would die for. And yes, A Line in the Dark by Malinda was a disappointment. Why was it a disappointment? Look at this cover. Look at this cover. Tell me, what does this cover, what does it bring to mind? What does that title, the way in which you have it dripping, what does it bring to mind? Does it not fill you with a delicious sense of, oh my God, this book is going to be dark, or this book is going to be like thrilling, you know, this book is going to make me feel things. Like, that is automatically, as expected, what you will get from this cover, right? Let me read the blurb. The blurb says, from Kirsten White. Kirsten White, who wrote And I Darken, stated, Malinda Lo's A Line in the Dark is soaked in menace. Each page in this brilliant thriller is deliciously unsettling, like Gone Girl meets Pretty Little Liars. Kate Elliott says, a beautifully written and compelling, well-observed psychological thriller. And Justine Lambalestia says, as soon as I finished, I had to read it again. This book, I came so close to DNFing it. The only reason why I did not DNF it is because you all know I do not DNF books. Unfortunately, I'm going to stick with it and see if it gets better. And in this book defense, it kind of got better, but then the ending was just so stupid. Now, what is this book about, right? This book that is meant to be Gone Girl meets Pretty Little Liars, hence I was coming for an unsettling psychological thriller. What I got was a snooze fest. This book is meant to be about Jess Wong. Jess Wong is my story, right? It's the story of so many young queer girls whereby you end up having a big ass crush on your best friend. So she has a best friend, Angie, who she is totally and completely into and in love with, and she follows Angie like Angie's every whim and desires, which once again I said is my story and the story of a lot of queer girls who fall for their best friend. The thing though is that Angie ends up falling for this girl that goes to this uppity prep school, right? Because they are from the other side of town, and she ends up falling for this girl who goes to this uppity prep school, and there starts the disconnect between Angie and Jess's relationship, right? Because Jess is, as expected, very jealous. Now, this is where things get very interesting, because I have been jealous of like my best friend's relationship, but Jess crosses into stalker territory. Jess, the way in which Jess just... I have been in situations where I've had crushes and I've noticed every single detail about the girl or the woman I have a crush on, but Jess keeps staring at Angie's crotch. She keeps going over to her house late at night. She just crossed into really, really creepy territory. And I, for one, was like, oh, if this book had been marketed that way, it would have worked for me. I would have given it 4 stars, because 4 stars, not 5 because of the way the ending was, but I would have given it 4 stars because it lived up to what I expected it to. But this book was meant to give me a thriller, right? Someone was meant to die, or someone was meant to fake it. We all, even if you have not read the book, you probably have watched the movie for Gone Girl, and we all know Pretty Little Liars. So that is what I expected. I expected to be unsettled, not bored. I picked up this book in May. I did not finish it until June. I was so bored out of my mind, and I was so annoyed because for half of this book, nothing really happens. We're just dealing with Jess's feelings, etc., etc. And then in the later part of the book, when the thriller part starts, it is rushed through so quickly. The thriller that I picked up this book for is rushed through so quickly and giving an ending that just had me rolling my eyes so hard. So I just wish publishers would realize that when you market your book wrongly, you get the wrong people to pick up the book. Or rather, you get the wrong people to pick up the book with zero expectations, and that then colors their enjoyment of the story. Because I repeat, the way in which this book was marketed was just nyeh. Like, god damn. And Malinda Lo did this thing in Huntress, and she brought it back again in this, in the sense that you're following a particular style. She was using a first-person narrator, a first-person point of view, that is from Jess's point of view. And then boom, in the middle of the book, she switches, and then the rest of the book is told in third-person omnipresent, like, narrator. And I'm like, why? Why does she like doing this? Stick to... The only good thing about it was that at least when she started the third person voice POV, she followed all the way through to the end. Unlike Huntress, where she was switching between those both voices every page. Like in every page, you would first hear from a first person narrator, then a third person narrator, then back to a first. At least this one, it was more maintained. But like I said, I wanted a psychological thriller that would just make me lose my mind, and I did not get that with this book, and that is just sad. Very sad. I gave this book a 2.5 stars. The reason why I gave it that extra 1 star, because like I said, I'm just so disappointed by the story that was told, and the way in which the thriller was handled, and the way in which she had the reveal. Everything was just a mess. But the only reason I gave it that extra 1 star was because, like I said, she captured the depth of emotion of being in love with your best friend and just holding it in, and it's tearing you apart when you watch your best friend fall for somebody else. Like, that was done well. And Malinda Lo does like know the right words to convey that, to put you in Jess's skin, to have you feeling everything that Jess is feeling, and I thought that was done well. But once again, if you had in mind a thrilling psychological thriller, this book is not for you. That was a 2.5 star. But honestly, to be fair, that was the lowest ranked book I read in the last 2 months. So yes, my May and June reading months were very successful, except for the fact that I failed in like 3 readathons that I wanted to participate in. But I am moving those books to still read them. Like, in this new month, in July, August, I'm going to get into that. So if you had seen my TBR videos for the last 2 months and you're like, yo, Noria, none of these books showed up, don't worry, I'm going to be reading them in July. But anyway, the next book I read is White Fragility, Why It's So Hard for White People to Talk About Racism by DiAngelo. Like I stated, this was one of our pick for the Blackout Body Read. And now I like reading it, I totally and completely understand the reason why it was stated that we pick up this and White Rage at the same time, and we needed to read them together. Because I'm thankful that I read White Fragility first, because of the fact that it's really, to me, it's really interesting, right? Because even though DiAngelo was talking about, you know, systemic racism and microaggressions, and she had very valid points, you know, about white solidarity, about how the white solidarity is built to uphold a racist system, because the racist system does benefit white people. And I really, really loved how she went into detail about the good-bad binary, whereby a lot of people believe that for you to be racist, you have to be a bad person, you have to say the N-word a lot, you know, you have to be lynching and basically being overtly racist, and you cannot be a good person and be racist. And why that in itself is a thinking that is very dangerous, because you exist in a system that, I repeat, benefits you as a white person just by existing. And it's important for you to be able to know that there are so many things to unlearn. And I did appreciate the fact that even towards the end of the book, she did include a situation where she had to unlearn certain racist thoughts and the way in which she approached it. And I appreciated also the fact that she stated that the black woman who she offended by, you know, making a joke about black people's hair, which, by the way, don't do jokes about black people's hair. It's why? Anyway, I'm happy that she stated that the black woman, the woman did not need to listen to her. The woman did not need to have that conversation with her. It was a woman's choice to, you know, walk her through exactly why this was wrong. And it was up to the woman to also accept the apology. But I like the fact that DiAngelo stated that if the woman had said no, she wanted nothing to do with her, at that point, it would have been justified. I don't know why I also felt that it was important for this white person, this white woman, to state that because it should be a given. But then again, she's talking to white people about racism, so I get why she needed to clarify that point. But the thing I did notice was that even in talking about white fragility, the way in which she had that conversation with white people, and I recognize that this book is not for me because she is talking to white people, living in a system where being white is the a lot of white people have put themselves in positions of power, which was something else I really liked that she stated. She gave numbers, she gave figures, and I think statistics is important because when she states and she does this breakdown, and over all these major industries are led by over 90% white people, then you understand how exactly how systemic the racism is, and why all these policies and every single thing from the music industry is overwhelmingly white, the movie industry is overwhelmingly white and male. You know, in the classes, teachers that are teaching children, that are imbibing in them the education that they need to go on to have this better life, are overwhelmingly white. In the government, in the judiciary, I like the fact that she broke it down so you understand just why this overwhelming number and the clear difference between racism and prejudice. You know, and the reason why when people tell you that reverse racism is not a thing, they actually do mean that, because there's no power attached to the prejudice. You know, and people saying stuff that you consider, oh my god, this reverse racism is not going to cost you your life or your job, you know, or cost you anything that is going to cost you pain other than your feelings being hurt. But see, that's the thing. I had a problem with this book, and that's the reason why this book is a 3.75 book, actually, if I'm being honest. Because she handles the topics with kids' gloves. And I understand that she's talking about white fragility. And I don't know if she recognized the irony, because she was talking about white fragility and was very fragile in the way she was handling white people's feelings and feeding them the information. But I understand and I respect fully what she was trying to do. And I think that she probably did succeed. I don't know. I have to talk to more white people to see if they actually did learn things from the book, because I'm not sure. But I love the fact that she drove home the whole thing about, you know, intent and impact. Because a lot of the times when people are making bad faith arguments, especially when they're trying to excuse racism, and this also is not just for race, this applies across so many spectrum, but we're talking about race, you know, when they're trying to explain away the racism, and they focus so much on the intent, and therefore that is where, you know, cuddling white feelings and white tears come in, and totally ignore the impact. And I love the fact that she was very clear about that, but I wish she had pushed things more. I wish she had not been so careful in how she was handling white feelings. And I understand that the book is titled White Fragility, you know, but sometimes if the whole point is to show just how fragile white fragility is, then wouldn't it have been made more sense for her to utterly shatter it, at least at the end of the book? I'm just putting it out there. The next book on my list is Ghosts of the Shadow Market by Cassandra, Clare, Sarah Rees Brennan, Maureen Johnson, Kelly Link, and Robin Wasserman. I'm going to state, of course, that May and June were my months of catching up with the rest of Cassandra Clare's books, and I did that. So yeah, you'll be seeing a lot of Cassandra Clare's books in this wrap-up. But anyway, next up is Ghosts of the Shadow Market. I gave this a 4-star. I did really enjoy it. I think Jem Castex is one of my favorite characters, and watching him slowly sink into the life of Brother Zechariah, right? Except for the occasional moments when the people around him were what made him remember his humanity. I really liked seeing that. I liked seeing the gradual, like we start this book shortly after he was turned into a silent brother, right? And so he still retained a lot of that humanity. He was still connected to the lives of his friends. And then centuries later, we see him slowly losing touch of that humanity, slowly losing sight of that humanity, until he runs into young Jace on the ship, you know, and interacts with the love of my life, Rafael Santiago and Lily Chen. So I really did like seeing that. I also liked seeing the different characters from his eyes. I love seeing the way in which he interacted with them. I love getting the heads up with regards to the big secret that Matthew Fairchild had, because I read Chain of Gold after, so I know the backstory, and it's just heartbreaking. But like I said, I really did love seeing all the aspects of his life. I think my favorite story in this is most likely The Land I Lost. Also because, I'm certain nobody's surprised, but it's Land I Lost because it's Alec's story, it's Malek's story. We see just how far Alec Lightwood has come as a shadow hunter, from the person that blindly follows rules to someone who has a code that, like, you know, speaks to him and determines exactly the decisions he takes, and how he's changing the world, you know, one interaction at a time, one save at a time, all so that I can build this world that is Also that to him, it can be worthy of the warlock who loves him. And like Malek in this, as always, just took my breath away. I also love the wicked powers because it was interesting. So far, our understanding of Celine, right, as being through the stories that were told, Jace, etc., we have not had an idea of who she was as a person. And just her story is heartbreaking because when you realize the abuse she has suffered as a child, when you realize what led her to that point with Stephen, then you understand it and you get it. But then you also understand the force of her own spirit, of her own nature, and how she got suckered into this whole thing that was way out of her control. But like I said, I really did enjoy this. I gave this a 4 stars. Absolutely loved it. Next, I read The Red Scrolls of Magic by Cassandra, Clare, and Wesley Chu. This I gave 4.5 stars. I absolutely loved it. The reason I gave it to a 4.5 star actually had nothing to do with the story or the writing, which I thought was amazing. It's because of the fact that I felt this book was too short. I felt that compared to all the other series that Cassandra Clare has been writing, this book was really short. I think it's like barely 300 pages, 300 and something pages, right? Yeah, 342 pages. So it's really short. But I did enjoy it because, I repeat, Magnus and Alec are my favorite couples in the Shadowhunter universe, followed closely by Ellen and Aileen, and the fact that both sets of couples showed up in this just made this book skyrocket for me. In this, we follow Magnus and Alec, who are finally, right, this book takes place after the events of City of Glass. So this place takes place in City of Fallen Angels, because in the book, you know, everybody else in the New York Institute had mentioned the fact that Magnus and Alec were on vacation. So we follow this vacation and the adventures that they have. And this was so cute and fun seeing when you recognize the relationship that Magnus and Alec have now. They seem like such a strong established couple, and taking us back to how their story really blossomed, you know, being able to see Magnus being so excited about making, you know, the date count for Alec and expending so much energy, being able to see him just want this period to just be such a happy moment for himself and his boyfriend, a boyfriend who, I would like to state, has never really been on vacation, right? And yet, even though they want to take this time out for themselves, trouble still finds them, because it's not a Shadowhunter story if trouble does not come and meet you when you are on vacation. And the trouble in this case is the fact that it would seem that Magnus had kind of unwittingly set up a cult at a period when he was, you know, drunk, and now the cult is actively killing in his name, and he needs to find the cult to stop them. Unfortunately, it does seem that someone actively wants to kill Magnus, or at least kidnap him. And I loved the twist at the end, because I did not see the bad person coming. And when that happens to me in a book, I feel very satisfied. And I liked to see that twist. When it happened, I was like, oh my God, I did not expect that. But when you see a twist and you are like, oh, I did not expect that, but when I consider what this twist is, it makes sense to the story that the writer was telling. That's when you know that the twist was a good one. So I'm really happy about that. And like I said, I loved seeing Ellen and Aileen like have their relationship and watching it develop, and seeing all that first meetup of I can't get my eyes off of you, and we're all connecting and we're all fighting demons. Like, killing demons and stopping cults definitely does strengthen a love and a bond, and we got that with Red Scrolls of Magic. And we also got to see someone very critical and important to Magnus's story in this book, which is also the reason why anybody that reads this book before reading City of Heavenly Fire would have been spoiled. And there's also the epilogue of this also had a spoiler, and I was like, oh my God. That's why I did my video of the right order to read this Shadowhunter books, because the spoilers. But yes, Red Scrolls of Magic, 4.5 star. I'm going to approximate it to 5 stars on Goodreads, and it's more than worth it. Next up is Lady Midnight by Cassandra Clare. Yes, this is the first book in the Dark Artifices series, and you all know my relationship, the relationship I've had with Cassandra Clare's works. I did not like the Mortal Instruments. I found it very tropey and very annoying, but I did appreciate the world building, and I did have a couple of favorite characters that showed up in that, namely Magnus Bane. And I read the Infernal Devices, which I felt was okay, was definitely better than the Mortal Instruments. It was good. I wasn't mind blown. I wasn't absolutely completely in love with it. And I was still giving up all hope of finding a Cassandra Clare series that will own me heart, body, and soul until Lady Midnight started with the Dark Artifices. And I recognize that the reason, like, the characters in this are amazing. We do not get those old story of, oh, someone new to the Shadowhunter world comes in and is just discovering the universe. Like, all the characters in this are established in the Shadowhunter business. They know what it is, they know what it stands for, and I think that also contributed to my enjoyment of the story, because I was not being introduced to these things. I knew these characters also had, you know, a lot more sense than some of the characters, Clare, which I appreciated. I really did. And in this, we followed Julian Blackthorne and Emma Casteres, who have been parameterized since they were younger, when it was that Julian's parents were killed, and Julian automatically found himself at 12 years old, becoming both the older brother and parents to his four siblings. And while he's juggling that, he's also juggling with the fact that, you see, he has been in love with his best friend, and he thinks he made a huge mistake by agreeing to be her parabatai, even though he did step up to become a parabatai, because if not for that, she would have been turned away from the LA Institute, which is the only institute she's called home, you know, and everybody that she considers family, because our own parents also died. And all of this set against the after effect, the aftermath of the Dark War that was waged by Sebastian Morgenstern. So that is the premise. The reason why Julian Blackthorne would always hold my heart and my soul is also because in the world created by she who must not be named, you know, and the school that was created as well, there are 4 houses, and my house, which is the green and silver house, has always been seen as being very manipulative and very evil, and like there's no redeeming features within us. And Julian Blackthorne shows that you can be a member of that house, but the whole point is being able to channel it in a way that protects those you love, in this case, his family and Emma. Julian would do anything for them. Being able to protect them is something that a lot of people might consider not a trait of my house. Because I was having a conversation with a friend, Sarah, and Sarah was like, yo, I thought he was in the red house because, you know, it's very bold to do what he did. And I was like, yo, there is a particular character who sacrificed his life to save an health. Right? And he knew he was going to die a very painful death, you know, and he still did that anyway. If that is not bravery, I don't know what is. To die without any thanks, without being aware that anybody would discover your sacrifice, is fucking ass brave. And I'm losing my shit. Just because she must not be named hates my house does not mean that, oh, we cannot be manipulative and still be brave and still protect those we love. It's just that we do it with way more sense. And that is something that Julian Blackthorne has in spades. He's very, very smart, very, very cunning, can be very, very manipulative, but he's also very, very loving. And I think that that is what I love about the Dark Artifices. All of these characters have so many layers to them. Emma is not just the kick-ass girl who, you know, swings the sword, swings katana and is a badass, right? Christina is not just the very good, sweet friend who is finally getting the chance to experience life and is absolutely loyal. She's more than that. The same thing with Kieran, the same thing with Mark, the same thing with Ty and Livy and Drusilla. Like, I'm just... I love this book. The only thing I would state though is that I was kind of expecting the baddie. I think it's because I think that storyline is very similar to what happened with the Mortal Instrument, you know, and all of that. And I was like, yo, it's too slightly similar. But I really did love this old friends who have been friends since kids, who did not realize what their feelings for each other meant, discovering that and getting a closer bond. I would state though that Cassandra Clare seems to have a thing for C's. I think it's because her name is CC. Because think about it, there's the clave, there's the council, there's the consul, there's the conclave, there's the circle, there's the cohort, like so many C's. Once again, is it because her name is CC? Because she clearly loves the letter C. But I did enjoy it. Also, we got our first introduction, like full-on introduction into the world of the Fae in this book. And like, I know so far we have met the Seelies, but in this we finally meet the Unseelie Court, like members of the Unseelie Court. And Cassandra Clare then takes the time to flesh out Fae. And you all know I have a weakness, a fondness for all things Fae. So I really did enjoy this. I really did enjoy this. I gave this a 5 stars, right? Loved it. Then I read Lord of Shadows, also by Cassandra Clare. This was also a 5 stars. And see, as much as sometimes it really pisses me off when the problem in a relationship is characters not communicating, and I don't want to go into details in this book because that would be a spoiler, especially for those that have not read Lady Midnight yet. But as much as my problem with a lot of relationship is the lack of communication, I would state that the lack of communication in this was justified because Cassandra Clare wove it into exactly why Julian and Emma's relationship is such a taboo. And I think I would state categorically that Cassandra Clare seems to love playing with this taboo relationship. I guess it's because it drives the angst and the drama. And although with Clary and Jace, I wasn't as affected, but again, I think it's because I've watched the show and I knew, that it was not as it was portrayed. In this book, I honestly did enjoy the angst. I felt the angst. I understood the angst and I understood the reason why these characters were not communicating with each other. Also, the death in this book was done so well because I was devastated. I did not see it coming and it broke my heart. But once again, all these characters were just amazing, absolutely brilliant. And also for the very first time, Cassandra Clare sowed the seeds of a polyamorous relationship, the one we were denied with Will, Jem, and Tessa. We did finally get in the series, starting with the groundwork that, was laid in Lady Midnight and further established in Lord of Shadows. And I really did enjoy it and I gave it 5 stars because once again, the angst was good and the communication made sense because of what it actually meant for these characters' future. And the stakes in this were raised high. And I think that is something that Cassandra Clare does. She usually leaves the stakes being minimal in other books and then she starts ratcheting it up she leaves the stakes minimal in the first books and then starts ratcheting it up by the second book. And in this, there was a death that just absolutely broke me in this. Also, the rep. Gotta love it. And then there's Queen of Hair and Darkness by Cassandra Clare. I also gave this a 5 stars. Yes, we have gotten to my 5-star portion of this book, which I considered all good, but there is a book that I consider great. And if you watched my Media Africa tag, you know what book that is, but I digress. Let's go back to Queen of Air and Darkness, which was the end of the series. Now, I would state that there were certain parts in this book that I did not agree with. I thought that some things were very, very convenient, and I thought that the way in which the main villain in this book, that we refer to in the title, the way the villain went down in this book, I just thought it was very anticlimactic, and I'm like, why? Why, Cassandra? Why? But like I said, I did get my polyamorous couple. I did get Julian and Emma. I did also get because a lot of times people forget that what drives Julian Blackthorne is the love of his family. The fact that he will be willing to do anything for them and also for Emma. And when he takes a decision that is very disastrous with regards his emotional health, watching that play out was very interesting. Now, I wish we had been able to explore that aspect of Julian without the emotional health being compromised like it was in this book. But in my head, I've already written canon with regards just how it just goes to, I love the fact that through that, Cassandra Clare was able to show us the extreme that Julian could go to and the fact that it does not contribute to who he is as a person, as a character in this book. Also, Diana Rayburn kicks ass. She kicks motherfucking ass. Oh my god. Diana is my fucking ass queen. I worship her. And of course, we got more of Kit Arundel. And I know part of this book is set up for the last series. The last series that would officially end up this world and end this world. And I'm very intrigued. Now, this book, with all the flaws and things I love about it, would have made a 4 stars. What gave it the 5-star was because we saw a very significant wedding. If you all know me, and even from this wrap-up, you already know whose wedding it most likely is, but there was a very significant wedding in this that just broke me, and I was crying at the wedding. I didn't cry anywhere else in this book, but at that wedding, it was just like we had come full circle, and I broke down in tears. I was so emotional. That gave me the extra 1 star. That wedding wedding. I'm just like, wedding. Love the wedding. But yes, Queen of Hair and Darkness. I hope I've been able to convey the things I loved and the things I was kind of like a bit iffy about. Also, I forgot one more thing. Cassandra Clare, we've already explored soulless Jace, you know, in the Mortal Instruments. Why are we doing this again in this book? Like that. Yes, so that was my last complaint. The soulless Jace part and the Ash part, which I felt was unnecessary. But I know it's set up for the Lost Powers, so let's see exactly how it plays out. I would just be rolling my eyes every time that part of the conversation shows up because I'm like, it was not necessary. But anyway, calm down, Noria. Calm down. I gave this a 5 stars. And then I read Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare, which this cover is gorgeous, isn't it? This is the first book in the Last Hour series, which follows the children of the kids from the Infernal Devices and their own adventures and shenanigans, and the fact that there is no Shadowhunter book where the Shadowhunters do not bring the love of my life, Magnus Bane, into it. That poor guy, he deserves a rest in centuries. I can understand why he was so frustrated with the Shadowhunters in the present day, even though he does discover the love of his life in the present day. But once again, I am losing my train of thought. In this, we follow the children from the characters in the Infernal Devices, and these kids are currently under quarantine. And yes, I read this while I was myself under lockdown in quarantine, and the irony is not lost on me. I just think that I really did find that very enjoyable for me. But anyway, these characters are trying to stay under quarantine, follow instructions, but at the same time they are trying to also defeat an evil. And I love Cordelia Castells. I think she's absolutely a total complete badass, and like watching her relationship with Lucy, you know, and seeing them how close they are, and also watching her love, because see, Cordelia is in love with James, but James is in love with somebody else. I know the drama. Cassandra Clare just gives us this drama, and I eat it up with a spoon, and like I just shove it in my mouth because these characters are so compelling. But this book also has one of my favorite characters, like after Magnus, right? Anna Lightwood is genderqueer. I'm going to be using they, them pronouns for them because they are just a total complete badass, right? I absolutely love them, seeing them just break art all over London at a time when, you know, people who are feminine presenting, who are women presenting, you know, are meant to be more, have more decorum, are meant to be more demure, are meant to, you know, be seen and not heard. But Anna is living by their own rules and they are having a blast doing so. I really, 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 really love this book. Oh my god, my heart. Absolutely adore Anna. Absolutely adore Anna. Seeing their friendship with Cordelia was also beautiful. I also love seeing the Merry Thieves. I think that Cassandra Clare does do bonds of friendship really well in her book. And the bonds of friendship between Thomas and Christopher and James and Matthew was just lovely to see. I'm actually very intrigued to see exactly how the second story would go, because there are so many characters, each one of them following their own separate plots. And I know that this is Cassandra Clare's specialty. This is her expertise. And there's the main couple, but then we are following all these other characters and their own individual character growth and journeys. And that is something I also love to see these characters grow into themselves, grow into a better version of themselves, because that is what we want in a book, to see characters grow and by extension apply those growth as to our own lives as well and grow as individuals. And we did get this. The chemistry was off the charts, the yearning, the ache, the angst was through the roof. You know, the characters were fully fledged. There was no one note character. They had so many layers, and I know we're going to spend the rest of the trilogy unveiling and unwrapping them. The baddie in this was believable. I love the twist. I think the reason why I kind of called the twist with regard who, you know, James's, okay, I don't want to spoil it, but with regards the reveal that was done at the end, someone of significance to James, like, I think the reason why I was able to guess that was because I kind of had a glimpse of it in Ghost of the Shadow Market, which I read before this, and I'm like, not that, I didn't know that for certain when I was reading that book, right? But when I got to Chain of Gold and the events were unfolding, I guess, and I was like, oh my god, is it? And then when it was confirmed, I was like, Great job, Cassandra. Great job. So like I said, I gave this a 5 stars. Have I managed to tell you why I love this book without necessarily spoiling everything for you? Because I'm trying to do that, and sometimes when I talk a lot, I tend to give away things. So I'm hoping I'm not spoiling this book for you. But yeah, Chain of Gold, 5 stars, loved it. Next up is White Rage, The Truth of Our Racial Divide by Carol Anderson. Now, the reason why I think that this book is best read alongside White Fragility is the fact that in White Rage, Carol Anderson shows us exactly, just how far-reaching White Rage is and what is at the root cause of it. And she does not spare any feelings because she's dealing solidly in facts, right? And being able to show us that every single instance of the rollback of gains that African Americans have enjoyed in America is always tied to white rage at Black advancement, right? And, winning the Civil War brought about Jim Crow, brought about Black codes, and just, I guess sometimes we forget just how it is that a system, especially when it is so overwhelmingly white and is set in place in order to enforce racism and make it even more systemic, the way it can play fast and loose with the law. Our interpretation can even in itself be racist and used to uphold racist ideals, whilst at the same time destroying and not taking seriously what the Constitution is stating and the laws that are being passed, and how in trying so hard to suppress Black people, America as a whole has consistently shot itself in the foot. At a time when the rest of the world was developing and, investing in the education of its people, white America reacted to brown versus education by shutting down schools and using taxes to fund private white schools instead. Also that, Black people will not have that chance of education and advancement. And even though this book is titled White Rage, I do realize that the feeling I was feeling whilst listening to it, because I listened to it on audio, and I definitely need to also get a physical copy so that I can really take notes and once again do a reread and take my time, because there's so much to unpack. This book is so dense, and like I said, seeing just how widespread, how a law that is meant to be set up to ascertain that everybody is equal and should be treated equal and should be given equal opportunities, how it was warped and changed and blatantly ignored in order to serve white America was just heartbreaking. And when you understand as well that the disenfranchisement of Black people, the enslavement of Black people, the subjugation of Black people is all tied together, right? And born out of a hatred of Black people. Then you really see truly in clearer light how damaging systemic racism is and why dismantling it has been such an uphill battle, because the system has tried for so long to quote what it is that it has been doing in terms that would leave it free from being able to be judged for everything it has done, to pull back, hinder, dissuade, prevent, tear down the accomplishments and achievements that Black people have had in America. I gave this book a 5 stars. I need to reread it over and over again. I also need to buy multiple copies so that the next time someone opens their dumbass mouth to have dumbass opinions, I can be like, yo, read a book, educate yourself. I'm going to save you the trouble. Here, have a copy. It's on me. Read it. So angry. Okay. And finally, the last book I read between May and June, The Love of My Life. The Weight of the Stars by Ancrum. Kayla gave me teenage sapphic romance of girls who love space and who fall in love with each other, and I'm just in awe, and I'm in love, and I'm smiling because I love this book so much. In this, we follow Ryan Bird. Ryan is currently raising both herself, a younger brother, and a younger brother's son. Ever since their parents died, they live in a trailer park, and she's carving a life for herself. But Ryan is also like a mother figure in her friends group, because every time she sees someone who is hurting, she reaches out and she pulls them into her group. And that's what she's done so far with all her friends. And seeing that bond of friendship, seeing it so strong, just, it makes my heart ache. And when Alexandra, the newest girl in school, comes, Ryan recognizes that pain and sets out to try and befriend her. And when an accident lands Alexandra in a hospital, and Ryan has to step up, and then she steps up, and through these actions of constantly helping Alexandra record, because see, Alexandra is trying to get a message from her mother who is in outer space. Through this, they develop a friendship, and from a friendship, they fall in love. And watching them fall in love was just beautiful and magical, and as inspiring, as awe-inspiring as space itself. And I loved every moment of this book. I adore every moment of this book. Ancrum's writing, Kayla's writing is beautiful and poignant, and every page just hits right. And I just love the titles with the way she wrote them. She wrote them in days, in minutes, in hours, just to show just how central time is in the relationship between Ryan and Alexandra, and also Alexandra and her mother, and how time also affects distance. I love every single bit of this book. I absolutely adore it. It's a book I will come to over and over and over again, and reread over and over and over again, because it's put such a big ass smile on my face. I love this book. I absolutely adore this book. It's small, she's pretty, she's absolutely gorgeous. Like, look at that cover. And then see, can you see that? See the radio signals. The radio signals, sprayed edges. It's also significant because radio signals are significant to the relationship between Ryan and Alexandra. And this book makes me like so sad that I'm not currently in a relationship, because this book was so good. But yeah, those are the 10 books I read in May and June. I fell behind a bit. I say fell behind because my Goodreads goal was to read 150 books this year, and I think so far I've only read like maybe say 30, 40, and we're already in July. So I definitely need to, pick things up, and I hope I get to do that in this month and moving forward, because I have so many books I want to read and I sincerely intend to get to them. But that is my wrap up. This is my favorite book in May, June, like absolute favorite. Let me know down in the comments down below what your absolute favorite book was that you read between May and June. Drop them down in the comments down below. Yeah, but that is this video. If you liked it, please do not forget to give it a big thumbs up. Check out my other videos. Subscribe if you want to, and if you do decide to subscribe, please do not forget to click on that notification bell so you can know the minute I have a new video go up. I make new videos every Wednesdays and Sundays at 2 p.m. EST. Yes, that's 2 p.m. EST. I will see you soon. Until then, stay passionate, love books, love yourself. Bye.